Hello everyone, welcome to this session on AWS servers. We'll be starting in a minute, guys. I request you to wait. What I'll do is I'll quickly also uh, join the webinar, guys. So give me a second.
Welcome to the webinar. You have entered as an organizer and may now speak to any other organizers or panelists on the line. When you are ready to begin the presentation, press the Start Broadcast button on the GoToWebinar control panel to allow all attendees to hear you. This system will notify you once you begin your broadcast. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, welcome to this part 2 session on launching AWS servers. So in the morning I told you guys why you should guys learn AWS. Now what I'm going to start off with is how you can get started with AWS, and now I'm going to show you how you can basically launch an AWS server by creating your own account. All right. So, guys, if we talk about the agenda would be fourfold. So, first we'll be talking about introduction to AWS. Then we'll be talking about the use case of an AWS as to how you can basically use AWS with an application. Then we'll be looking at AWS features, and then I'll be talking about AWS services. All right. So let's get started, guys. So first, let's get a brief intro about what AWS is exactly. So, guys, AWS is a company, a cloud provider, which basically gives servers on rent. It is as simple as this definition. Multinational companies, they do not tend to buy their own servers because of the headache of managing them, maintaining them, etc. They want servers to be used on demand, and that is exactly what AWS promises. Okay, so AWS is a cloud provider which can be used by anyone and everyone. Right, now let's move forward and talk about how is it basically used. Right, why is the demand for AWS such that a lot of companies, everyone today, is basically making use of cloud computing? Let's talk about a use case. Okay, so guys, let's say you are a developer, right? You are a guy who basically wants to start his own company, and let's say you want to build a company like Instagram. So you want to launch an application like Instagram. So let's say this is your Instagram application. You have developed that application, you have it on your system phone, but now you want to make it available to the world. So how will you do it? Now, when there are hundred thousands of people who want to access the same data that is with you, you have to have powerful hardware which can basically host all these 100,000 people, right? And that powerful hardware is nothing but servers. So you need servers where you can deploy your application, and these servers obviously will be connected to the internet, and from there the people all around the world would be able to access your application. Now, the point over here is how would you get a hold of these servers? Now, a server can be a system with around 128 GB of RAM, four octa-core CPUs can be there on each server, right? So this is the kind of a spec which is there in an extreme server, which is there in data warehouses. Okay. Now, how do you get a hold of this server with this much capacity? So first of all, you need a lot of money to invest in, right? And as a young company, when you are not sure if even if your product will actually be a hit or not, it can actually take a lot of time for you to save that much money and then start up with your idea. But nowadays, what happens is these kind of servers can be availed on a per hour basis, and the cost is as low as $0.005 an hour. Now, it won't be the same server that I just described you. It could be a 8 GB server with 2 core CPU, which can be given to you on this cost. But as and when you require more hardware, this price accordingly goes up. But my point being, if you want an application to be launched today, and you obviously in the first hour of your launching you would not expect around 100,000 users, right? So it will grow steadily. So and then you can plan your hardware according to it. So this is what the modern era of server deployment is, and it is possible using cloud computing. Right now, in cloud computing, you have a lot of companies which basically build on this business model, and AWS is one of those companies which give you these kind of services, which gives you servers on rent. Okay, so what is the advantage of having such a company, or having availing these kind of services from a company? So first of all, whenever you make use of a cloud provider, there is little, or actually there is no investment at all, right? Why? Because if you use those servers for 10 days, you will just you'll be paying the rent for 10 days of those servers. You will not be paying, you know, on contrary, if you are buying a server and you, let's say your business fails, you are stuck with that server, right? You have invested a lot of money, and obviously it's not a market where you can go ahead and sell your server to someone else, right? So that would be a lot of waste of investment if your business fails, and that basically amounts to a lot of risk. So but if you're using a cloud provider, or if you're using AWS, you have little to no investment in deploying servers of your own, right? Second thing is, because now companies can leverage the hardware power of AWS or any other cloud provider for that matter, they can now focus on app development, because the hardware, the maintenance, the updation of the hardware will all be managed by the cloud provider, and they do not charge you anything extra for that. Whatever rent you pay for that server, that includes each and every cost with regards to whatever maintenance is required for that hardware, right? So you as a CEO of your company, or you as a developer of that application, you just have to focus on app development. You don't have to worry about the hardware failing in the backend, right? Third thing is, obviously it requires less workforce. Why? Because now there will be less people who basically would be using your servers. They would sorry, who would be basically developing on your application, because now you would not need hardware engineers. Now you would not need maintenance people who will have to be up 24/7, right? You just need developers. You just need managers who can plan your product. You need product managers who can come up with new product ideas. This is the only workforce that you require. You don't require system admins. You don't require hardware engineers. You don't require server engineers. All that will be handled by the cloud provider from whom you have hired these servers. Okay, moving forward now. Now that I've told you that this is how AWS is used, and these are the advantages that AWS carries, and that's why a lot of companies are preferring to use AWS. Now you'll be like, okay, I want to become an AWS engineer. I want to enable companies, to use the AWS platform. But how will I learn AWS if I want to start learning AWS? If companies are paying less, what is the benefit for me when I'm trying to learn AWS? So, guys, AWS, basically, the first time you sign up on AWS, you get a 1 year free tier on AWS. That is, you can practice on AWS for free for 1 year by deploying servers. Now, obviously, there are some conditions with respect to how you can avail this free tier and how you can use it. We'll be talking about all that in a minute, right? So let me show you first how you can basically go ahead and create your own account on AWS and avail the free tier services. Okay, so let me go ahead on my browser. So first of all, you have to go to aws.amazon.com. Okay, now when you reach this URL, this is what the page is going to look like. Then you have to click on create an AWS account. Okay, click on this orange button and you will be taken to the registration page, where you will have to enter your email address, you will have to enter your password, and you will also have to enter the name on which this account is being registered for. Okay, so let's try to enter some values over here. Let's say I enter abc@gmail.com. I enter some random password. Okay, so I was telling you guys about the process of signing up. So once you have done that, you will be asked to enter your city, you will be asked to enter your state, your postal code, and then you will be taken to the page where they will be asking you about your credit card information, right? So in the credit card section, or you can either enter your debit card or your credit card over there. You will have to provide your card number, you will have to provide your CVV, and then it'll ask you for your OTP. For Indian customers, it'll ask you for OTP on your phone number. Enter that. For people outside India, it will just go ahead and keep if the card number is valid, it will deem your transaction to be successful. Okay. Now, once the transaction is successful, basically they will charge you around $1 if you're outside, or if you're in India, they'll charge you ₹2, right? Which will also be reversed in both the cases. That is, even if case you are being charged in some other currency, that is just for testing. Whether the card is working or not. They will charge a certain amount and then they will reverse it back. And with this, your AWS account is now verified and ready to use. Now, whenever you sign up on AWS, you automatically get signed up for the free tier account as well. Okay, so once you're signed up for the free tier account, the next thing that you have to do is come back to your. Uh, I'll just log into my AWS account now. So now I'll just log into my AWS account, and then I'll show you where will you land up. Right, so you will land up on a page which will look something like this. Okay, so you will be asked your username, enter your username, and once you enter your username, you will be asked to enter your password. Enter it. Issue with OBS today. Okay, so now that you are on your AWS management console, the next thing that you will have to do is you will have to sign up, or you will actually have to go ahead and use a service. Now there are a lot of services to from here that you can actually use, but what you have to use is the EC2 service, and we'll be talking more about that as we move along. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my slides. Yes. So now what I'll be doing is I will be showing you guys about some AWS services that you can use uh, while you are working on AWS. So these services, there are 100 plus services in AWS, but what you need to know of are just some services which are required to be learnt by you for getting a job, right? So we'll be talking about more about it as we move along in the sessions. In today's session, I will be talking about some of the major domains that are there in AWS that you should know of. Right now, what are those domains? So you will be knowing about the compute domain, the storage domain, the database domain, the security domain, management, customer engagement, and app integration. So these are some of the domains which are very important in AWS, and 90% of the times you will be working in only these domains. Now, when I say domain, domain basically means category of services. Okay, and when I say services, I basically mean servers. So there are a lot of different type of servers that you can launch in AWS, and basically their variety can vary from compute domain, it can be either from storage domain, it can be from database domain, security, management, customer engagement, app integration. In today's session, we will focus our attention only to the compute domain. So what is exactly the compute domain and what does it basically do? So guys, the compute domain basically has services which basically help you in getting uh, computers, right? Which you can work on. If you talk about what is the difference between the compute domain and the storage domain, so storage domain, as the name suggests, will give you servers which are just for storing information. It will just be like you having services such as S3, which is kind of similar to Google Drive. So Google Drive is again, a storage service given to you by google.com, on which you can upload your data and you can share it with people, right? But there are a lot more features with the similar product which is offered by AWS, and that particular product is called S3, right? So it comes under the storage domain of AWS, right? Similarly, there is one more domain in AWS which we are going to talk about today, which is the compute domain. Now, in compute domain, what you get as services is EC2. You get Elastic Beanstalk. You have Lambda. Now, all these are compute services in which you can upload your application, and if there is any computation work required over there, it will be done for you. For example, let's say you want to host a website, right? For hosting a website, you can use a service in AWS Compute, which is called Elastic Beanstalk. So you can upload all your websites to Elastic Beanstalk, and those websites will then be made available to the world. Okay. Now, similarly, when we talk about another service in AWS compute domain, which is called AWS Lambda, is basically used to execute any kind of code, right? So if you have some code which needs some processing power to execute, you can just upload it to AWS Lambda, and it will execute that code for you, and you will get the results. Similarly, there is one more service in AWS Compute, which is the most popular service. It is called EC2. Now, on EC2, it is not specific to any kind of workload. You can actually upload any kind of workload to AWS EC2. What it does is it basically gives you a server, and on that server you can do anything that you want. Let me clear it out more by actually showing you how you can work with AWS EC2, right? So I will just head over to my browser, and now I will go to the EC2 management console. So I'll just click on EC2. Right, so this is the EC2 server, and now what we'll be doing is we will be launching a server. So this is how the dashboard will look like once you sign up on AWS. You will have to click on running instances, and here you will get a blue button over here which is known as launch instance. Just click over there. Now, in launch instances, you can actually launch a virtual server with all these operating systems which are listed over here. So you can launch a Linux server with Red Hat running on it, or you can launch a Linux server with Ubuntu running on it, or you can launch a Windows server as well with Windows running on it. So all you have to do is choose an operating system that you want to launch with. Let's say I choose the Ubuntu server that I want to launch on. So I just select the Ubuntu server. And on the Ubuntu server, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the processor to basically run, right? So you can choose any processor from this list. What I will be choosing is the processor which falls under the free tier. That means for you guys, whenever you want to launch a server and not get charged on it, you will always have to just select this processor, which is T2.micro. This gives you 1 GB of RAM, and it gives you a 1 core CPU that you can play around with without any charge for 1 year. Okay, so select this processor, click on next, and now what you can do is you can specify or select any properties listed over here. Okay, so if you want, you can leave it everything at default, because these are some things which will be a little advanced for you as of now. For this session, you will learn more about it when you start learning about AWS as you move along, right? But for now, you can leave everything on default and directly click on review and launch. Now, when you click on review and launch, it will show you all the settings that you have done so far, right? You can just click on launch from here. And now this is the most important step. It will basically ask you to create a key pair. Now, what is a key pair exactly? A key pair is basically, it's an authentication method. So Earlier what used to happen was you used to use uh, passwords, right? And passwords basically are a good way of authenticating yourself, but the sad part is when you're using uh, passwords, if they get shared with anyone for whatever reason, or if someone guesses your password, your account gets compromised, right? But with a key pair, what you get is you get a file downloaded on your system, and only when you authenticate yourself with that file that you have downloaded, only then you will be authenticated on your server. So there's no more chances of your password getting leaked until and unless nobody gets access to the file which AWS gives you. Nobody will be able to authenticate into your AWS server. Okay, so what you can do is you can create a file, and that file is called key pair. You can create a file like this. Let's call it AWS EC2. Let's download it, and that file has been downloaded for me now. Okay, now I'll just click on launch instances, and now my server is being launched on AWS. Now this is a virtual server, guys, right, which has one CPU and it has 1 GB RAM, and we can do whatever you want with this server once it's deployed. Okay, so this is running an Ubuntu operating system over it, right? And how can we access it? I will just show you in a moment. Okay, so as you can see, the server state is now running. So what we can do is we can just refresh in a moment. Okay, everything looks good. So you have something called as a public IP over here, right? Public IPs are basically IPs that can be reached over on the internet. So if I want to connect to my server, I will actually have to go to this particular IP address. So let me copy this IP address, right? And for connecting to this IP address, if you are using any Linux operating system, you simply just have to go to your terminal. If you're using Windows, you will have to download a software called Putty. So just go to your browser, type in Putty download, right? The first link that you get, click over there, and it says you can download Putty here. Just click on this link, and from here you can download the installer for Putty. So based on which processor you're using, if it's 64-bit, download this version. If it's 32-bit, download this version, right? Download the Putty software, and apart from this, what you also have to download is one more software called Putty Gen. Okay, so download Putty Gen as well. And once both these softwares are installed on your system, first click on Putty Gen, and let me show you. A screen will open. A screen will open, and now what you have to do with the screen is, let me show you quickly. You have to click on the load button. Okay, you have to click on the load button over here, and then you have to go to the file which basically was given to you by AWS. Okay, so select that file, then that file will be loaded, right? And once that file is loaded, then you have to click on save private key. Okay, this is only for people who will be trying it on Windows, guys. On Linux, it's very simple. On Windows, it's a little complicated, but I mean, the job can be done. So once you click on save private key, just give that private key some name, and a file will be saved on your system with the extension of ppk. Okay, now once that file has been saved, just save it to a location which is known to you, for example the desktop. And then what you have to do is you have to basically go to the second software that you download, which is Putty. Okay, now in Putty, what you have to do is you have to basically this is how the Putty window will look like. You have to go to SSH, and you have to click on auth. So when you click on auth, what will happen is it will basically give you a browse option over here, not this screenshot, but it will give you a browse option over here, right? Browse to the ppk file, that you download that you basically created using puttygen. Just select that file, and then after that click on this option which is called session. Click on this option which is called session. So once you click on session, this is the UI that you will get. Now what you have to do is enter the IP address over here of the server that you just got created, and then click on open. Okay, when you click on open, it will ask you for the username. Enter the username as Ubuntu, and that is how you will connect to your server. Now let me show you how it's done in Linux. So when you want to do it in Linux, guys, all you have to do is type in terminal. Just open your terminal, okay, and go to the place where you have basically downloaded your ppk file now, or your pem file basically, which has been given to you by AWS. After that, type in the command ssh space hyphen I and specify the file that got downloaded from AWS. So in my case, it's aws ec2.pem. After that, specify the username of your server, which is Ubuntu, and then the IP address of that server. Okay. Once you do that, hit enter, and this will basically give you a prompt. Do you want to trust this server? Just type in yes, and then you might get an error like this. This will Windows people will not get, right? Linux people, you might get an error like this. It says unprotected private key file. This is because the permissions are not correctly set for this particular file, and you can change this by typing in chmod 500 and then the name of the file. Just give me 1 second. And hit enter, right? 1 second. Okay, so once the permissions have been changed, try the same SSH command again, and now it should basically connect to your server. Okay, so as you can see, I have successfully connected to my server now, right? And now what I can do is I can do anything on this server. I can go ahead and this is the same output that even the Windows users will get, right? And once you're logged in, the next thing that you have to do is, let's say we want to host a website on this server. Okay, how can we do that? Just type in sudo apt get update. This is the command in Ubuntu to update the machine. And next thing that you would be doing is installing a web server. So for that, the command is sudo apt get install apache 2. Okay, once the once the web server has been installed, now let me show you guys a very cool thing. Now what you can do is just go to your AWS management console, and you will find something called as security groups for the server that you have selected. Just go to that security group, click on inbound rules, and click on edit inbound rules. Now here you can open ports for your server, right? Let's enable all traffic on our server from anywhere in the world. And now let's click on save. Now this is something that I'm doing just because I'm showing you a demo. This is basically a very unprotected server now if I've opened the firewall, but I think the security aspects we will learn as we move along. But for now, just enable all traffic on your server. Okay, and now what you can do is if you go to the IP address of your EC2 server now, right? Let me quickly show you what will happen. This is the IP address of this server, and if I go to this IP address now, I will be able to see a web page that got created because I've installed the web server software on my AWS EC2. So you have successfully created your first virtual server after this, and you have successfully hosted a website on your AWS server. Okay, you can go ahead and change this web page as well if you want. So this is so first of all, what you'll have to do is you will have to go to a file location called /var/www/html, and here you will have to delete a file called index.html, and the command for that is what is visible on the screen. Once you hit that, just create a new file which is called index.html, and then you can write a very simple HTML code which will look something like this, which can say something like welcome to Intellipaat's live. Close this heading, close the body, close the HTML as well. And now if I go to the same IP address, you can see a new web page over here which says welcome to Intellipaat's live. Now if I give this IP address to you guys, even you guys would be able to attend this. Okay, so just type in 3.17.72.48, and this will basically open the welcome to Intellipaat's live web page for you guys as well. And this is how, guys, you can create your first server on AWS. All right, guys, so with this, let me just come back to my slides. Alright guys, so I just showed you how you can create your first server on AWS. In the next session, which is there on 8:30, we'll take it a bit a notch up again. And what we'll do is we will basically go ahead and we will basically launch AWS servers, and we will be hosting a custom application of ours over there, which will be able to host files on AWS as well. It can upload data to AWS, and we will be routing it through a custom domain in AWS, and I will show you guys how you can do it. Right. So what I suggest you guys is you can register for the webinar in the YouTube description below. Just click on that link, and that will give you access to a web page from where you can register for webinars. And from there, if you register for that webinar, you can actually ask live questions to me while I'm teaching you. Right. So with that said, guys, I thank you all for joining in today. I'll see you in the next session, which is at 8:30. Have a great day ahead, and goodbye.